On May 30, 2026, Paris Saint-Germain met Arsenal in Budapest for the Champions League final. After a 1-1 deadlock through 120 minutes, PSG secured the title on penalties, winning the shootout 4-3. This victory marked PSG as back-to-back champions of Europe. It is a feat rarely seen in the modern era, placing this squad alongside the legendary Real Madrid teams of the last decade. This era of dominance was built without the star power of Messi or Neymar. Instead, manager Luis Enrique focused on tactical hunger, creating a roster that relied on collective movement rather than individual megastars. On paper, this was the highest possible achievement for the club. It was a night meant to solidify PSG's place at the summit of the sport and bring the city of Paris together in celebration. While the players lifted the trophy in Hungary, the streets of Paris descended into a state of emergency. By dawn, 890 people had been arrested across France, with nearly 300 taken into custody in the capital alone. Vehicles were overturned and set ablaze in full view of the Eiffel Tower. What began as a fan gathering quickly shifted into a confrontation between thousands of people and the police. The night also claimed a life. A 23-year-old man was killed in central Paris after being hit by a car while riding his scooter through the massive crowds. The same sporting achievement produced two simultaneous realities: a historic triumph on the pitch in Budapest and a night of fire and looting on the streets of Paris. The center of the crisis was the Champs-Élysées. Immediately after the final whistle, 20,000 fans fled onto the avenue to mark the club's second consecutive European title. The atmosphere shifted by midnight. Groups within the crowd began launching large fireworks horizontally, aiming them directly at police officers along the avenue. Looters broke into shops along the world's most famous street. Bus shelters were smashed, and the local town hall described the scene as a total breakdown of civil order. Authorities responded with a massive deployment of tear gas. Heavy water cannons were moved into position to clear the road, spraying high-pressure streams to push the crowds back. By the time the sun rose, the Champs-Élysées resembled a combat zone. The physical damage to the city's infrastructure had completely overshadowed the celebrations. This destruction was not unexpected. In 2025, after PSG won their first Champions League title, the city endured nearly identical violence. To prevent a repeat, the French government mobilized 6,000 police and gendarmes for the 2026 final. This chart shows the scale of the previous year's riots. In 2025, 559 people were arrested, over 260 vehicles were burned, and 2 people died during the unrest. Shops boarded up their windows days in advance, hoping the security plan was sufficient. Despite these preparations, arrests spiked to 890, showing that a tripled police presence couldn't suppress the violence that is now standard. This represents a systemic failure of the state. The massive security apparatus proved unable to contain a threat that it had 12 months to study and prepare for. The political fallout was immediate. President Emmanuel Macron spent the morning after the match navigating a divided national response. Macron hosted the PSG squad at the Élysée Palace to congratulate them on their day of glory. Only hours later, he was forced to issue a formal statement condemning the riots occurring just miles from the palace gates. Opposition leaders quickly used the footage to challenge the government. Marine Le Pen wrote on X that only in France does a football victory spark riots, claiming the violence forces citizens to lock themselves in their homes. Jordan Bardella and other nationalist figures characterized the disorder as a symptom of deeper institutional failure, using the night's events to argue that the government has lost control of the streets. The riots have moved beyond a policing issue. They are now central to the debate over France's cultural future and the state's ability to maintain public safety. On the field, Paris Saint-Germain has achieved the extraordinary. They have built a team that believes in itself and wins at the highest level of the sport. While the players and peaceful fans celebrate their success, the residents of Paris are left to deal with the wreckage. For this club, the victory and the violence are now functionally linked. Every major sporting step forward for PSG currently triggers a massive emergency response in the capital. As the club enters this golden era, they carry a heavy shadow. If back-to-back titles resulted in this much damage, the city is left wondering what will happen to the streets of Paris if PSG wins a third.